Hey guys, Pastor Matt here. As we were thinking about Overcomers Season 2, we knew we wanted to make it video and not just audio only. And then that kind of opened up, if I'm being real honest, all sorts of expenses in regards to moving from simply audio to audio and video. And so as I thought about possible sponsors, I knew I wanted it to be either organizations or products that I actually use. And so the one I want to highlight here is the Dwell Bible Study app. And if you've listened to me for a while, you know I've brought up this app before when the app first came out. I would use it predominantly as a devotional tool. There are things I will pick up on with my ear that I sometimes won't pick up with my eyes. And so if you want to figure out ways to increase your intake of the Word of God, I could not commend the Dwell Bible Study app anymore to you. I want to mention another one of our sponsors that has made this episode possible. Several years ago, the Village Church was really wrestling through the rising cost of health insurance for our staff and their families. So we began to look for an alternative to classic insurance, and we came across Christian Healthcare Ministries. And so for over a decade now, we have partnered with Christian Healthcare Ministries, we just call it CHM, at the Village Church, and we've done so as an alternative to insurance to cover most, if not all, of the major health issues of our staff and their families. So if you're looking for an alternative to high-cost insurance, I would commend CHM to you, Christian Healthcare Ministries. You can go to their website at chministries.org or just click the link in the show notes.
And I remember having a dark moment of, if you take all those pills right now,
Yeah.
we're done with this.
Yeah.
That was dark.
That is.
And he came in the room and I'm like having a breakdown. I'm literally losing my mind in this moment. So I just remember thinking, I just cannot live like this anymore.
Well, hey, Matt and Katie Murph, like some of my favorite people, like no, not just because you're here. Like I've said to other people when you're not around that you guys are some of my favorite people. And so I'm glad that you guys can come on to the Overcomers. Part of what I want to do in the telling of your story today, specifically Katie, but Matt, you certainly have been right in the thick of it, is I think the uniqueness of your story, Katie, as I've gotten to watch and pray and contend for you, is that it's not just been one thing. It's been a series of things where after a decade, we're like, goodness sakes, can my friend get a break? So why don't we pick up the story in college, world by the tail, college Katie, life of the party, and then what starts to happen?
Yeah, so college, was so fun, so great. Cheered in college, grateful to have been able to have done that. I just started having abdominal pain every month, which every woman typically has, but mine just kind of elevated and became greater than normal pain, and was probably 50% of the month versus just a little bit of the month. And so went to some doctors, got some testing done, and found out that I had endometriosis. And so that was just something that I didn't even know what it was, but it was definitely something that I was struggling with, and was starting to affect my life because, again, I wasn't in pain once a month like a normal person. It was half the month I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was probably some of the beginning of just some physical pain and suffering. And then just through college and cheerleading, I ended up hurting my wrist, getting ready for nationals, and I shredded a bunch of ligaments in my left wrist. Was able to just wrap it up and compete and do all the things, but I had surgery 2 days after nationals, which ended college cheerleading for me. Rightfully so. There was so much damage done. To continue would have been foolish. But that injury in college was a doozy. And so that moved me back to Texas, which is where I was born and raised. Went to school in Kentucky. And so that was my first memories of true, it's
kind of foreshadowing of some
yeah,
things to come.
Never would I have thought, looking 20 years down the road, plus there'd just be a lot more of that to come, just little versions of it, you know?
You two meet, date, fall in love, get married. And even as you're getting married, like some of the conversation has to be about, hey, I can be in some significant pain, quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like, hey, this is something that I struggle with. And, it doesn't appear to be a major issue right now. I mean, some people have infertility problems, some people don't. That wasn't really on our radar at that time, but we get married. That's like a non-factor for us. We're so in love and we're going to get married and we're just so excited about that. But about 2 years into marriage, the endometriosis just really revved up. I mean, it had progressively been getting worse and worse and more painful. And then at this point, it's, more than 50% of the time. It's probably about 75% of the time. And just talking with my doctor too, he was like, if you guys feel like you want to have kids and start a family one day, I think that it would be in your best interest to go ahead and try to do that now or sooner rather than later, because the endometriosis is just getting worse. And I'd already had a surgery where they kind of went in and lasered some of the stuff off just to try to clean it up a little bit to help. And that did help. That was early in marriage. But yeah, it was, hey, let's maybe try to have kids a little bit earlier than maybe we would have put on paper, entering into marriage. But still, we got a good 2 years without kids. And we thought, well, let's give it a good go. And we tried to get pregnant on our own, probably for about 2 months, which is 10 seconds in the scheme of things. I mean, really. But the pain was so bad that I was like, I can't deal with this. And so the doctor was like, let's do another laparoscopic surgery and laser and clean everything up, just to also give maybe you guys a little bit better of a chance in conceiving. And so, we did another surgery where they went in, kind of cleaned up as much endometriosis as they could while still taking precautions, because we were trying to conceive a child during that time. And little did we know, I guess the last hurrah before that surgery, we conceived Ava, and we had no idea. And so baby girl was in there, just a little twinkle. And I had laparoscopic lasers on my uterus and all my lady parts. And we had no idea.
While pregnant.
Yeah. And even, did a pregnancy test in the hospital the morning of surgery, negative, because it was just...
It was a twinkle.
It was a twinkle.
Just a little twinkle.
And so after surgery, everything's just different because you're recovering and all of that stuff. So long story short, we were pregnant. We had no idea, but we were able to conceive a baby. And we were so grateful because endometriosis had gotten to a point where it's like, ugh, that wasn't really something I had considered, that we would never be able to have children, but it was kind of starting to become a real thought. And so we were just so grateful that we were able to have, to get pregnant and sustain a healthy pregnancy full term. And she's 17 on Thursday.
Sweet Ava.
I know, she's awesome.
Sweet Ava.
So that's where the endometriosis started. And then, after that, 3 years later, we had Addie, who's our second daughter, and she's about to be 14. Another healthy pregnancy. We had no issues with that either. And so truly having 2 pregnancies and childbirth is something that naturally helps endometriosis. So after Addie's birth, I really did not suffer or struggle with endometriosis for years and years and years and years. And so I had several years there where I was kind of living my best life.
So you kind of felt like,
aside from that,
survived that wave, survived that kind of season.
Yes.
We get to the other side of endometriosis. We've got 2 beautiful, beautiful baby girls. And then what's the next wave that comes?
The next wave was Lyme disease, and that was a doozy. So Addie was about 1.5 years. And I just started feeling really run down and tired, like every single mom with young children. But this was a little bit different. It was in the fall when I started to kind of notice it, but I had really overcommitted myself to hosting like a holiday market at my house. We had huge family Thanksgiving stuff. I hosted another Christmas party, and I've got, toddlers and all. I just figured I was burning the candle at both ends, but I started to get these crazy arm aches. It was really from like my eyes, my neck, and my arms is really kind of where it manifested itself. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I remember my eyes, like, if you get the flu, you just kind of have eye aches and it hurts to look in the corner. It was very similar to that, but heightened and just so extremely painful. I mean, I literally could not move my eyes. And then my arms, it's like my bones ached. It was such a deep, unique pain I'd never experienced before, I'd never heard of before. And so, I think that in my brain, I'm still just like, it's the holidays. I've overcommitted myself.
Yeah.
I've got a lot going on. And it was after we got on the other side of the holidays, little Addie's upstairs in her crib and she's waking up from her nap. And so she's kind of stirring and she starts fussing. And I realized that I am so weak and in so much pain that I physically cannot get up the stairs. And I'm a very fit person right now. But I used to be. I was in excellent shape.
And a high tolerance to pain too. So for Katie to say that this is painful, that puts the rest of us.
Something.
We're already living the ER for most people, and she's like, it's starting to hurt. I'm like, well, then it's serious.
So in that moment, I think I realized, well, first of all, I have a baby crying, and I have a 3-year-old in the house playing with Barbie somewhere, and I cannot get upstairs, and my baby's crying. And so my mom lives in my neighborhood, at this point. And so I have to call my mom and basically say, Nana, I'm a lot worse off than I thought I was. So she rushes over. And again, like this whole time, I'm trying to get up the stairs and I physically can't. And so my mom comes over and she gets Addie and just kind of takes over. And I just drive to the doctor. I mean, it's like, well, someone drives me to the doctor.
Sure.
I get to the doctor and it's like, I have no idea what's going on. This is how long it's been going on. And so my family physician basically runs a bunch of tests. He kind of thinks he knows what's going on. I think based on just some of the aches that I have. He had a family member with Lyme disease, so he was actually pretty familiar with it. A lot of doctors are not familiar with it. Anyway, so he runs a ton of tests and I get the results back and sure enough, I have Lyme disease. And that was just like, okay, I think I've heard of it. I mean, I certainly like limes in my water and cook with it or whatever, but I don't know what Lyme disease actually is. And I've never been bit by a tick. I have it's really out of left field. So do a month long of antibiotics that don't work. They don't do anything. They don't touch it. Get in touch with the #1 infectious disease doctor in Dallas. He kind of scratches his head at it, runs a bunch of tests, still comes back extremely strong, along with some other, random things. And he's like, okay, we need to do weekly IV antibiotics and all these things. And, Matt's really kind of starting his business and we don't have the time or the money. And I've got 2 young kids at home. I can't drive to Dallas every week and sit there for hours and do IV antibiotics. And so it kind of a long story short, I learned a lot about just juicing and fasting in general. And so ultimately, that was something that I decided to try before going the weekly IV antibiotics. And so 14 days of fasting.
Okay.
And praying, and everything just vanished.
Okay.
All the symptoms, all the aches, all the pains. I also could not sleep during this time, which was crazy because I was so exhausted.
But couldn't sleep.
I forgot I also had mono. That was another co-infection that I was struggling with. I had mono, which like what you do for mono is sleep.
Yeah.
But the Lyme disease created insomnia. So I was struggling with Lyme disease and mono and unable to sleep.
Okay.
So I was a bit insane.
I think when things go bad like that, you start to look for what can I control?
Yeah.
And it was like diet. We can just go down the rabbit hole as far as possible and figure out what can we do from an intake point of view to help stem this off. And so that's where, young married couple looking into fasting was like, no, thank you.
That was the solution. Let's not eat for 2 weeks.
Or juicing.
Yeah.
It's like, because that's fun.
Yeah.
Like,
It was so hard. But after day 5, I really started to actually get a little bit of energy.
Okay.
And I started sleeping for the first time. And it was easy to kind of finish out because it's like it had already been beyond 2 months at this point from the moment I could not go up the stairs.
Yeah.
So really it had been about 5 months.
Yeah.
So that whole 14-day fast and pleading with the Lord, because it was like I felt like I'm fighting for my life at this point. Still, I could not pick up Addie.
Okay.
She was just a sweet little pumpkin. But I physically did not have the strength in my arms. My arms ached so bad.
Yeah.
I could not pick her up.
I was going to ask a little bit about how the interaction with the girls was in this season. You've got these 2 beautiful little girls
Yeah.
and to want to interact and play but just not have just not have the juice for that, and then not have the strength even
Yeah.
to pick them up. The Lyme mono combo out of nowhere with no tick, no backstory, just randomly there's Lyme disease here in my body somehow.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard, and it's been so long since I've really thought through some of this stuff. But looking back, it's like, yeah, I mean, there was a short season where I could not pick Addie up. So maybe Matt had to go get her, or my mom spent more time at our house. Like when I knew that she needed to go down for a nap in her crib, and that was probably the reaching over the crib rails and getting her, I needed somebody to pick her up. But I remember I spent so much time, we had a playroom upstairs, and it was just this massive carpeted room, and we just had junk everywhere. I mean, it was like a playhouse. And so I just would sit on the ground and try to play with Ava, watch Addie crawl around, and still just try to be present. I mean, I still read them books, and I don't look back in that time and feel like I was robbed of those sweet little precious years.
Oh, praise God.
Because I feel like I was able to just kind of
Figure it out.
power through and figure it out. So,
And they were young enough that they probably didn't know any different anyway.
I mean, coloring was the highlight of the day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were, we were like not even riding bikes at this point.
Yeah.
So like the physical parenting part was so low key. We would just sit down and play Play-Doh, and we would color and, play with little dolls and little things like that. She would do my hair. I remember sitting down, and Ava, beauty shop, man, she loved her some beauty shop.
believe it.
So I could just sit there and let her brush and pull all of my hair out. So I feel like I was able to participate in that.
Good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm grateful because it could have just been not
Harder.
that. Yeah.
So then we get through endometriosis. We have a little bit of a respite, and then the Lyme mono combo, and then 14 days of fasting and praying and juicing, and then that all the symptoms kind of quell from there. And then what comes next, Katie?
So I feel like we had some time in there where it was like life was good. I was healthy. I was strong. Our family was thriving. We made lots of memories. We traveled with the kids. But the endometriosis kind of came back is kind of what the next probably wave is, if you will. It just came back with a vengeance. It was mad. And it just was 100% of the time. It eventually worked itself up to I'm in pain 100% of the time, not 50% of the month or 75% of the month. Every single day, I am in so much pain. And then at this point, I also now had adenomyosis, which is different than endometriosis, but very similar.
Okay.
And at this point now, I'm really struggling with getting ovarian cysts.
Okay.
And those things erupt and are excruciating. That's just a moment of, wow, that is take your breath away, painful.
Okay.
So this is something that kind of, slowly comes, but just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And so, we finally get to the point where, we've had the conversation that we feel like our family is precious at 4 and that we're done having children. I think we'd kind of come to an agreement that we both were on the same page, that I think our family is complete. I think the workshop is ready to be shut down. And so, the conversation with my doctor is, I think you need to consider a hysterectomy. Which, man, I didn't think that would be as difficult.
And how old were you when this conversation's happening?
Well, probably low 30s, because I think what was materializing was the doctors, if we rewind 10 years, they saw this down the road.
Yeah.
They're like, well, the way to fix this is just take everything out.
Yeah.
But before we had kids, it was. I think they were telling us what we could receive and not overwhelm us of like, hey, if you guys want to have kids, get on it.
You should
Get on it, because that thing's coming out as soon as you guys... I think as soon as they got the wind that we might be done, they're like, okay, let's schedule this and get her done.
So I think the conversation to where it got really serious on like, it's time to not mess around with this anymore, was about 7 years ago. They kind of say, hey, a hysterectomy is really the inevitable and something that you really strongly need to consider. And so it took me a hot minute to consider, although I was in so much pain, it's very final. For a woman, I mean, you almost feel like, I don't know, it's a lot more emotional than I think I ever would have imagined.
Saying you're done and factually being done are two different things.
And and it's removing your womb.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I mean,
I don't, but yes.
I know you don't know, but I guess for me, I never thought until it came down to putting like pen to paper and scheduling the surgery, it was a lot harder to do emotionally than I had ever anticipated, because it was, I mean, we think we're done having kids, but like now we're done.
Yeah.
And they were going to remove my womb, and I had babies, and there's just something sweet and precious about that. But at the same time, it's attacking me. And so we need to get that thing out.
Yeah.
And so starting to wrap my brain around that. And in that time, Matt went on a mission trip with the church to Berlin. And while he was gone, I had one of the toughest weeks of my life, I think, just holding down the fort. But my endometriosis just went bananas. And I had a cyst erupt while he was gone. And I was just in the most pain I think I'd ever been in that night, laying in bed. And I just felt like the Lord was saying, it is time to schedule. And so literally days later, he gets back from Berlin and we go to Encounter that night. And we're at Encounter. And I haven't even had, like, I think he lands from Berlin like that morning.
Yeah.
And then we're at Encounter a couple of hours later. So I have not even had time to sit down with him and unpack, like, so this is what happened when you were gone.
How was your week?
Hope you had a good time.
Yeah. We've not had the chance to even have the conversation on, okay, I got to schedule the surgery. You get up on stage at Encounter, and just while we're doing worship, you know, a lot of times you pray and the Lord will sometimes give you a vision or a word to share with anybody in the room. That particular night, you said, the Lord's given me some words, and I don't know if it resonates with anybody in the room, but the two words that you said that night were endometriosis and ovarian cyst. I guess that's 3 words.
It is.
Endometriosis and ovarian cyst. And I swear I just like melted to the ground.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was the Lord directly communicating with me, Katie Murph, girl, this is a problem, and it's time to get this figured out. And so that was
weighty.
just...
That was a weighty
That
moment.
was a
'Cause
weighty...
both of us were like, oh, it's.
And then I'm like, by the way, when you were gone, I mean, this is all during prayer. I was like, when you were gone, and then I'm trying to unpack, and I can't even hardly talk.
Yeah.
I'm crying. I'm so overwhelmed by emotion and just the Lord being like, I see you.
Yeah.
I see you in this, and I know what you've been struggling with, and I know what the last 48 hours have looked like. And so to get kind of that direct communication from the Lord with just this situation, and that he sees me and I'm not alone in it, but it's time to do something about it. And this is the path that I need to take to do something about it.
Yeah.
It was very clear in that moment. And so we get home and we're trying to look at our schedule with, like, when is it a good time to have a hysterectomy? That's a massive surgery. That's for a mom with kids,
who
you know.
homeschools, right?
Yeah.
It's like, when would be a good time to take her out for a couple weeks?
Yeah.
Never.
Apparently there's never
That's
a good time.
Never.
Never a good
So
time.
we kind of dance with our schedule, and we're like, okay, well, maybe after this summer. So we kind of said, all right, as soon as the kids get back into school, we can get some help and do that. So fast forward to that time, my dad suddenly has a massive stroke and brain aneurysm and is holding on for dear life. And that was just out of left field. There was no warning signs for that. He was in perfect health, no medication. Like, he was just completely healthy. And
They live 2 miles away. We see them 5 times a week.
We saw, or at least talked to, my parents every single day. I mean, I talked to my mom like, you know, she's my homegirl.
Yeah.
So I talked to her all the time. But my dad especially, he was always my biggest fan.
Yeah.
And he could always cheer me up. The dude was hysterical. And so it was just great to sit down and have a conversation with him. It didn't matter what was happening or what time of day it was. Just any time with him was a blessing and a gift. And so, yeah, he was very involved. I had a very close relationship with my dad. And so this was just devastating. Again, it was out of left field. Yeah. I mean, we saw him the night before, just completely happy and normal and just laughing and cutting up like he always did. And so this just came out of nowhere. And so it just really devastated our family.
And did you postponed then the hysterectomy?
Postponed then. Yeah. So a little bit more about that situation of losing my dad. My mom was out of town in Colorado on a girls trip. And we just couldn't get a hold of my dad that day. And so Matt and I are the ones that kind of, you know, Matt and a police officer entered the home and found him asleep, basically. But he was really in a deep coma. But he was alive and breathing. he lived in ICU for a whole week. They were able to wake him up. I mean, it was a lot of up and down. Like, there's no hope. We've never seen this much brain damage. He's never going to open his eyes again. 4 hours later, he opens his eyes and gives thumbs ups. And so it just came out of left field, and just trying to navigate, is he going to live? Is he going to be in hospice for 6 months because his body was healthy? He just had an assault to his brain. And so there was a lot for my mom to wrap her brain around. And I think it almost paralyzed her. So I really had to step into the role of, it took her
basically making all the medical decisions on this person's future.
Yeah.
We know his wishes, but now we know that it's not always black and white.
Yeah.
You can write on paper, these are my wishes, and then you get into the hospital and you have this number of things going on. It's just like, okay, unfortunately, all that actually goes out the window because it's far more gray than that.
Sure.
So with the ups and downs of that, the taxing, and it was like, Katie was really the one having to play family leader of, here's how we need to kind of continue to, do we do surgery again? Do we do some more cutting? Do we do some more, it was a messy week.
Yeah.
I think it started because my mom wasn't here when it all went down. And so I was at the emergency room dealing with all the surgeons, and there was a clot that they wanted to cut out. And we were just trying to give him the best shot that we could. So I think even when she got here, I had been the one kind of running the show with the doctors and nurses, and and we worked alongside that together, my mom and I. But in a way, she just kind of leaned on me because I think in some weird way, I had a more clear headspace because maybe I had a little bit longer to wrap my brain around it. I don't know. Yeah. And so I kind of had to step into that role of being the pillar of strength for the family, and just kind of holding my mom up and helping her, work through this. We were planning an 80th birthday party for my dad, in 2 months. We'd already, we had all these plans to celebrate his life in a different way.
Yeah.
And so I think, it just really rattled her in a sense. So it took several months to a year of me helping be that strength for my mom. And that's where all my focus went, was just to helping her, and then grieving on my own.
Absolutely.
What a huge loss, the greatest loss I've ever experienced. And so anything aside from that just took a back seat.
Yeah. But the physical pain still remains.
Still there.
Yeah.
Physical pain is still there, but at the same time, it's almost like, shut up and get in the back row. I don't have time for you. I'm so over you reminding me daily that there's a problem.
Yeah.
I need to be sad for my dad.
Yeah.
I need to be there for my mom. We need to rejoice in the life and the godly man that he was, and the legacy that he leaves. Like there were so many other things that we wanted and needed to spend time grieving and celebrating, if you will. And then finally, it's time to plan the surgery. It was about a year after.
One of the ways we're able to bring these stories to you is by partnering with organizations that I've grown to trust and appreciate and love over the last couple of years. The Dwell Bible app, if you followed my ministry, I've mentioned it before. It's just one of my favorite tools, like in my own devotional life, in my own study life, to find more ways to hear the Word of God, to absorb the Word of God, to have the Word of God top of mind for me. And so I've used it devotionally. I've used it in regards to just, I'm currently studying the book of Daniel. And so all day today, I've had the Daniel read by Mark with ambient music in the background playing on my phone in my truck as I, walked outside a little bit earlier this morning, just finding ways to have the Word of God absorbing into my system, and the design, the beauty of the app, the various kinds of music that can play under, the accents that can go to. There are so many aspects of the app that could serve to stir your affections for Jesus, depending on preference and desire. And so I commend the Dwell Bible Study app to you. For the last 10 years, my family and I have used Christian healthcare ministries, really for almost all of our medical bill needs. They are an alternative to traditional healthcare, and they have provided for some significant and major issues for our family. And so if you're like a lot of people, and the cost of health insurance is just overwhelming to you, I would encourage you, because I know open enrollment is coming up for most people in most places, to consider Christian healthcare ministries. Again, we've been using them for over or right at a decade now. They've covered major surgeries. They've provided for all sorts of needs that we've had in our family, both on the emergency front and the normal everyday front. So I would encourage you to check them out at chministries.org, or you can click the link in the show notes. Okay, have the surgery, and then we're like, okay, surely we've got we've got kind of clear horizons heading into, the girls getting very vocal and very mobile. And
Ava got her, it was perfect timing when I had the surgery, because it was like right when, no, that was my hip surgery. I was like, Ava just got turned 16. That's another surgery.
Yeah, we'll get to that surgery.
Yeah,
we
but no,
the
girls,
through things to get through.
the girls were at an age and busy with school and dance that, I could take some time off.
Yeah.
And they're very capable young ladies. So,
Very much so.
But even my surgery, it's almost comical to wake up from that surgery and the doctors say, well, it was a little more complicated and unique than we anticipated. I'm like, that is how I roll.
Of course.
Apparently, that is the theme of Katie Murph. So I had apparently a bunch of small tumors and all of the nerves and muscles that kind of hold your uterus in place. And so aside from just removing the uterus and some of that stuff, they had to cut out dozens of tumors. And so that recovery just was a more difficult and longer recovery than just your typical hysterectomy. All those nerves and muscles trying to, reattach, or so had that surgery, had a longer recovery with that than expected, but it was still fine. And I gave myself a good long time to recover. And probably, 6+ months after that, I decided, I'm good, man. I'm gonna start trying to exercise again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hire a trainer, and I'm gonna do it right. And really, this whole time prior, I had been exercising 5 days a week. I've always been very physically active, even through the endometriosis. Paused with the Lyme disease because I couldn't even go up the stairs. But other than that, I'd always worked out, and it just was something that I enjoyed doing, and I felt great, all that. So I'm like, I'm ready to get back into working out again. Doing very minimal working out. But one day I'm warming up with walking lunges, and she gives me, an extra set of weight. So I've got a little bit more weight, and I'm just doing my walking lunges, forward lunges, just around the room. I do this 2 times a week, no big deal. Well, this day, I guess I did a super lunge. I don't know what I did. Something popped like in the back of my hip, or kind of where your hamstring meets your hiney.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shoot, I think I hurt myself. Dadgummit. I don't know what I did, but really hurts. So I finished working out, but I just didn't do anything down there. I mean, I did some other things that, didn't bother it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think I hurt myself. That's not good.
Now, at this point, is there starting to be like a script that forms in your mind and heart about, well, here we go again, or?
Not really. And I think that I've recently learned this about myself. I'm really forward thinking.
Yeah.
And so even when, you and I had a conversation a while ago, just about some of these things that I've walked through in the last just decade.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wow, that did happen, didn't it? So I feel like I try not to look in the rearview mirror of things that have happened. I mean, I definitely want to learn and grow from them, but I'm like, what's next?
Yeah, you're future oriented.
Move on.
Yeah, I'm just future oriented. So,
well, one of the things, and I know I want to keep talking. One of the things that I'd love to highlight about even your relationship with the Lord is that my experience as a pastor is that when people have just endured over and over and over and over again one thing or a variety of things, if they're not careful, it kind of becomes their identity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That I'm the sick person, or I'm the person that bad things happen to, or I'm the person that can't get free from, or I'm the person that, and one of the things that, I say to Lauren often about you is if you knew nothing about Katie and Matt Murph, and you just met them, and you just, for 6 months, just interacted with them, you would have no idea all that they've endured and walked through together, because you just kind of still exude the joy of the Lord. And I know you've had dark nights, and we'll talk about those.
For
but
sure.
I was curious at, even at this point in the story, is there starting to be like a script, like here we go again? So it's interesting to hear that.
Not yet. The script, that script does come.
Well, I mean, we've had conversations. I know it comes.
Yeah, that script comes. But I think at this point, not yet. I think at this point, I'm like, shoot, I was just like my 40th birthday
Just turning a corner.
is months away. I mean, a good while away.
Yeah,
but I'm
you're
like,
gonna fit by 40.
Fit by 40. I'm going to go into my 40s like a boss.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm not training for the Olympics, but let's turn 40 in a strong and healthy way.
Yeah.
Anyways, weeks and weeks pass by, and then the front part of my hip starts hurting. It never hurt before, And I did not even associate that walking lunge with this hip pain, because at this point it had probably been about a month, and the back hamstring or back glute area, if you will, like that kind of went away.
Yeah.
And all my pain now was at the front corner of my hip and at the front. So I was like, where is that coming from? That's weird. I just woke up. So I go to an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm like, this is what's going on. And he's like, I think this is what the problem is. Let's just try a cortisone shot in the bursa first and just kind of see what's going on there. Did the shot, got relief for like 3 days, and then it was back in full swing. Really, really painful. Was doing physical therapy, got an MRI. MRI showed that I had torn my glute medius and my glute minimus.
Okay.
And that I also had a labral tear in my labrum. And so, again, it was like, let's try to do everything we can before just jumping to surgery.
Yeah.
And so I did PRP injections. I did more cortisone. I did a boatload of physical therapy and stretching. I did anti-inflammatory eating, just medications. And then we eventually go to pain management, where I see a pain management doctor. And now we're just trying to find the right pain pill, and that did not work. I really did not get relief, substantial relief, to just be living on pain medicine. And I'm like, this is not going to cut it. I don't want to be taking this medicine if I'm not pain-free.
Yeah.
And it's really doing something. Otherwise, I'm just taking all these pills, and that's a whole nother set of problems that could show up.
Yeah.
So meet with the doctor, and I'm like, this is not going to work. And so only a handful of doctors do this type of glute repair in Dallas. And so he had to refer me to someone down in Dallas who was excellent. And decide, okay,
Gonna have the surgery.
got to have this massive surgery, which the glute repair itself is a beast.
Sure.
It's one of the most difficult recoveries. A hip replacement was a piece of cake compared to the glute repair. So that's really why we try to do everything to avoid that surgery.
Yeah. And you are, and I appreciate it. We're kind of blowing through. This is an extended season.
Yeah, I know.
Where it's okay. Where we are, your kind of crew is around you, and we're praying, and we're asking for relief. And this is a kind of agonizing pain that really powerful, really prescription meds aren't putting a dent in. I mean, they're just not doing anything for it. And I remember, long seasons of just contending that the Lord would heal you, that He would lessen the pain, that, you're not really able to go up and down your stairs.
Yeah.
We're back again, where the girls
It's
are
the stairs.
upstairs and
It's
you're
the stair-
downstairs.
I need a one-story house.
And I think you have one now. No, kind of.
We've got, just the girls' bedroom. I mean,
there's secrets.
it's almost a one
secrets
story.
in that new house. And so we're just kind of talking about, like, this is my hip hurt. And it was actually excruciating pain that like wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And no one could make it stop. And that plays on you.
It does.
And it's interrupting life, by the way, too, because, there are a couple times where I took the girls skiing, Katie stayed home.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you going to go sit and
Katie
watch
Murph
us
don't
ski?
stay at home.
Right.
This is true.
Or like, well, if we're going on a walk or a hike, there was quite a season there that it's truly interrupting just the flow of regular life. Like we're doing things without mom sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of forget, again, just kind of telling the story and all of the things, it's to pause in this season and really talk about, I could not go up the stairs. I physically could not lift my leg and push with my glute either to go up the stairs to tuck my kids in. And so I missed out on a lot. So here's probably where I started feeling robbed of participating in being a mom. And this is not the wife that I think he thought he'd be married to.
Sure.
I can't go out and just like run errands and just go piddle with the family. I mean, just the walking and doing all of those things was really, really hard. And something that I feel like, we can't miss is before I had this first surgery on my hip. That's when we prayed at church, the elders. So that is such a moment in my story in general, of just, again, the Lord showing up and saying, I haven't forgotten about you. I think it's so important to note how important community is.
Yeah.
Having a community of believers that can rally around you and plead with you, and pray with you and cry with you and be frustrated, and you can share genuinely how this suffering is. I mean, it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
And there are moments of hope and believing like the Lord's going to bring an end to this.
Yeah.
Just don't know when.
Think about going through any of that without close, good friends. Because I think we've all had seasons in life where we had friends, but they're kind of like, meh. But when you have close, good friends, you got a crew, some ride or dies.
Yeah.
Like that was oftentimes the bridge to staying alive.
I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain, aside from just trying to walk around my house or drive my car, taking my foot from the gas to the brake.
There's a season where that was a problem.
That part is torn. So just if I'm in traffic, like I'm ready to pull over and just throw in the towel, because just moving my foot from the gas to the brake to get to and from school or to and from dance, or heaven forbid I go to the grocery store. That was really challenging. Just basic daily things that we all take for granted, was just a constant reminder of there's something seriously wrong, and just the amount of pain that, pain medicine wasn't touching. And so that was hard, because I wasn't sleeping. And I couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes, and then it just starts burning. And then I couldn't stand, and then it just starts burning. And then if I started to move, like it just, no matter what I did,
There was no reprieve.
There was no reprieve, even trying to sleep at night, no reprieve. And so that was really, really hard, which is how I got to the point of we've got to do this surgery, because we've tried everything and nothing is working. I was at Encounter, and I felt like just in the middle of worship, the Lord had kind of said, have you fasted and prayed over this? Like I have been praying and talking to the Lord daily. But I hadn't actually fasted and prayed over this. So at the end of that, Lauren comes over and she's like, hey, I was praying tonight, and I just felt like the Lord told me to maybe ask you have you considered fasting over this? And I was like, well, by God.
Well, here he is.
Here he is again. And so I had decided, I absolutely think that's something that I need to do. And I am shocked that I haven't already thought to do that, Anyways, so that week, it's a Wednesday.
Middle of the afternoon.
I decide
small group.
I'm going to fast. I'm going to fast for 24 hours or maybe 2 days. I don't remember what I decided, but you guys encouraged me, come to church on Thursday. The elders meet and pray on Thursday or whatever. So come and let us pray over you again. You guys had laid hands and prayed hundreds of times at this point. But this was, let's rally. Let's let the elders and our prayer team and the people that are there on Thursday, let's do that. And so I had been fasting and praying, and here we go. So we pray that day, and we get in the room, and just everyone lays hands, and just people just start praying. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So they're done praying, and they're like, okay, walk around. How does your hip feel? Do you feel any different? And I'm like, no, I'm just still in so much pain. We're going to pray again. We're going to keep praying. So pray again. And then we kind of do this series several times, and so then we stop praying, and they're like, okay, walk around. And I walk around, and I'm like, I have no pain. And then I'm like checking myself. Is this adrenaline? Are you like, is this? And I'm like, no, this is real. And I'm moving around, and I'm kind of, moving my leg, and I'm trying to be like, is this real? This is, and I'm like, I literally have no pain. And it was crazy because Stephen, who was there praying, He was like, man, when I was praying, I just kept getting the number 7 in my head. And then Lauren was there as well. And she's like, I counted how many times we prayed, and we prayed 7 times.
Yeah.
And so that was just Holy Ghost stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, wow. And so I had no pain.
And this was like for our crew, this was huge.
Huge,
I mean,
huge
we've been
breakthrough.
praying so much.
Yes.
And then, oh my gosh, the Lord
Yeah.
just healed Katie.
And I walked out of church that day just not in disbelief, but
Walked
like
differently.
Yeah.
I was
Like,
walking
I've been
straight.
watching her
I had
walk
a
for
massive limp for, I mean,
Yeah, it was notable.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden it was
looked
just
a little
like
funny.
perfectly
I
fine.
just walked normal. And I just walked to my car and went on. I had 3 days of this. So even when I got home, I was like, okay, is this adrenaline? Like, I'm like
probably coming
trying
back.
not to doubt
Like-
the Lord or question that this is real. But I'm like, is this real?
Yeah.
And it sure was. I mean, I had 3 solid days of no pain. I slept for the first time in a very long time. And then the pain slowly started creeping in after that. But I feel like that was the Lord saying, I've caught every tear.
Yeah.
I have been with you this whole time, because I've had moments I'm like, Lord, where are you? Where
Yeah.
are you in this? I mean, I know that you have equipped me to do great things, and I just can't do them because I'm sidelined right now. I physically am not able to do some of these things I know you've called me to do, like being a mother in one of them. And so there's definitely been some frustrations, but I'm like, I just heard the Lord say, like, you've never been alone, and I've been with you. And I see you, and I've got a plan, and I've got perfect timing. But I felt like he was so gracious to give me those 3 days that only he could give me.
Just a reminder. that
Just
I
a
see you.
reminder that I'm here.
Yeah.
And I needed that. That timing was
Yeah.
very
it was-
timely.
Things were getting dark.
Yeah. The pain came back, and it just was as bad as it was before. So I ended up having to do the surgery.
Yeah.
Which was okay.
Yeah.
You know, the Lord heals through medicine and
Absolutely
through
he
surgeries.
does.
And so, like, this was the plan and the path that we needed to go. And that surgery was a doozy. And that recovery was unbelievable.
Yeah. And so we get through, we're not even through the hip. Like, we just get through surgery 1.
Yeah. Surgery 1.
And I do remember recovery was brutal. Like, can't get in or out of bed.
Yeah.
Can't get,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
just
12 weeks
stuck.
of basically being in bed, because with this type of glute repair and the amount of damage that was done, I was on crutches for a while, for a long while. But
after the bed.
after the
was
bed,
not.
I could not put any weight at all on this leg or toe. Like, I could kind of prop my toe up to just not let my leg hang, but I was not to bear any amount of weight on that for well over 12 weeks. But I couldn't get in and out of bed by myself. He had to come help lift my leg, because again, if I used any muscles or strength, it could actually undo the repair.
Okay.
So it's so important that I don't power through,
Yeah.
and that I don't just, come back quicker than I'm supposed to. I have to really obey the protocol and the recovery, which is so
to tell
hard.
a do-it-yourselfer to stop doing is,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a disruption.
Yeah. Hi guys, Pastor Matt here. Several years ago, I started trying to figure out where to get news that I could trust, that I wouldn't on guard against various ideologies or bents. Just tell me what the facts are. And so the Pour Over News was pointed out to me by a good friend, and they have a newsletter that comes out a couple of times a week, a quick 10-minute podcast. You can follow them on Instagram, and their heart is simply to hear the facts of the biggest news of the day, of the week, and then hear some biblical reminders for you as a believer in light. So it's not Christian news. It's not like, here's what's happening with Tim Keller's catalog now that he's gone home to be with the Lord. That's not what it is. It's global news, national news, biggest things going on in the world. And then on the end of that, just biblical reminders. Here's how we ought to think about that as followers of Jesus Christ. And so if you're a person that tends to get overwhelmed with the amount of news, or you're just a little jaded in like where you're getting your news right now, feeling like it's slanted, I would just commend the Pour Over to you. Talk to me, Matt, about, you still have 2 young daughters now that are very active socially and very active in their sport, which is dance. They are, and so you are caring for mom. You are managing the household. You are, Ava's not driving yet.
Not yet.
Not quite yet. And so we are like, the dance thing it feels out of control to me. And so you're up there 6, 7, 8
several times
a day. And I'm just kidding. It's not that bad.
It was several days. Most days were several times a day of going back and forth. Because different ages, they dance at different times. So it's different drop-off, different pickups. And, they get involved in some carpooling and things like that. But
and then,
it's a busy season.
So I know Katie's wrestle with the Lord in the seasons maybe a little bit different than yours. I don't know. She's like, won't you take this away? How long, oh Lord? And then, kind of ebbed and flowed between things getting really dark and her feeling like she just can't do this much more. And then having these kind of breakthroughs where the Lord shows up and just like puts wind in your sails again for a little bit longer, reminds you that I see you and I haven't forgotten you. Talk to me about it. It's one thing, I think, to endure it. It's another thing to watch someone you love endure it. That's a bit of a different. Talk to me a little bit about your own relationship with the Lord in this season, watching Katie seemingly not be able to catch a break.
I think I would just call it volatile.
Okay.
I know that God has a plan.
Yeah.
But I often am very particular about the timing that I would like.
Sure.
And none of that was really happening. So I think one word that comes to mind was just frustration. Because the recovery from the glute repair surgery, I think without question, was the hardest thing we've ever done. And I'm saying we, it's really like she did it.
Yeah.
She is the one that is enduring it. But I think through those moments of constantly back and forth, with dropping girls off, it's, and everywhere. It seemed like I had to go 100 places a day
School,
almost.
church, dance.
And it was just, I was wearing down and just frustrated. And I think God got me through it because I was definitely, I think there were a lot of days where I woke up already at my wits, just right there at my wits end.
Yeah.
like it's just day after day after day after day.
He never showed that though. I never saw him
so
short.
totally
if it's a scale of 1 to 10, it's like, well, I'm going to bed at a 9. I'm probably waking up at the same 9.
Waking up at a 7.6.
So, whatever hiccups coming this morning, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
So I think that anyone who has a family can appreciate, like, this is a volatile time. Mom can't get out of bed. Dad, I'm running wild here between church and school and dance and caring for my wife. And I can imagine that. I think, again, anybody who's watching this will be like, oh my gosh, I could imagine if I was the only capable parent for 12 weeks, except single mom. Single mom was like, whatever. But
I think I expected more from myself during this as well, because we have a crew at church. We got such a great crew. We got great friends. So we had a meal train that was out of this world. I mean, it was just every day for the longest time, there were meals coming. And, I'm not working at the time. So it's like, if there was ever someone that was going to step up and do this, well, this is I got a good hand of cards to be able to do this with. And even with, I think, all these advantages, I was like, I'm wearing out.
Yeah.
Wearing out. And so I think there were just moments of where there were days where both of us were just like, we just hit our 10 and you're just kind of like, what
Gotta go to
is
bed. Happening? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we start physical therapy and, just very light, easy protocol. And I just, it hurts because I've been in bed also for like 12 weeks nearly, and so just moving your body again from any surgery or just being laid out like that, it's going to, it's going to be a little rusty. And so there is some pain with having to, healthy pain with reusing some things. And so I just remember physical therapy, it just hurt, it hurt a little bit, and I'd have to take some more pain medicine when I'd go home and anti-inflammatories and all the things, but it just never went, it just always hurt. And even trying to get farther and farther along in physical therapy to be able to do more things and to gain more strength, it just hurt. Yeah. And then I'd go home from physical therapy and it just would really hurt. And that just kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse to the point where I was just like,
what was that surgery even for?
This is not right.
Even though we know it had to happen, it was just like, I think we felt like, well, that surgery solved nothing.
Yeah.
Though it did.
Yeah.
It just felt like it did not.
Right. And so go back to my doctor. And basically I'm like, okay, this is where I am. This is what hurts. This is whatever. Another MRI, and my labrum is retorn.
Okay. The labrum they had just fixed in the first.
Yeah, the labrum that he had just fixed is torn. And so what I learned about myself and all of this hip shenanigans is that I have hip dysplasia, and I never knew that I had hip dysplasia. And so basically what that is, my pelvis doesn't grow out, the bone doesn't grow out over the hip joint and protect it in the joint like a normal person. So I have a shallow and small hip socket, if you will. So
to give you a visual, it's like the hip, it does this.
Supposed to.
And hers does this.
Okay.
It's just not as that.
So that ball and socket is more exposed than a normal person. And so, which is why it retore. And he explained to me, because in that surgery also, I learned that I had a hip impingement and a bone deformity that I didn't even know I had. So they shaved part of my femur. There's supposed to be a curve in the front part where there wasn't a curve. It was just straight.
Okay.
So they had kind of reshaped some of the bones. They had done a lot more structural stuff than just some of the repairs. But he had explained, with the hip dysplasia, you are just more prone to re-injury and re-injury. Okay. So he wasn't really surprised that my labrum retore. I'd never had hip issues before. Growing up, all the years of college cheerleading, dance, all the things, never had any issues because I was so strong.
Yeah.
My core, my abdomen, my legs, I was very strong and I stretched all the time. Yeah. And so right before my first injury of my hip, I was recovering from the hysterectomy. And so my abdomen had zero strength. In fact, my muscles in my abdomen, my lowest they had been cut out, like little tumors and stuff. So it was a perfect storm. And I think that's why my hip, and there's so much damage happened to my hip, is because I didn't know I had hip dysplasia, but we removed all the strength and support and stability and then tried to work out with that. And so it just retore. And so he said, honestly, this is just going to keep re-tearing and we're not going to just redo this repair every 6 months. And so, again, he's like, you can try to do physical therapy and power therapy. I mean, there are people that can live with torn labrums and stuff. This is something that, depending on how bad it is, you can live with it and you can do physical therapy and strengthen the surrounding areas, and it can be a doable thing.
Yeah.
But he's like, ultimately, I think you need to consider a hip replacement based on what your genetics are and the way your bones are. It's just like, it's just going to probably just keep getting worse. And so ultimately you will just, if you want to fix this once and for all, and because my biggest complaint was I'm young, I have kids, we are an active family, we are scuba divers, we go snow skiing, we go snorkeling, we travel, like we like to go and do, and mama can't go and do anymore. And I've been doing this for years, and I'm ready to get back to life. I'm ready to get back to living my life and participating in these things. And so he said, then you need to get it replaced and get it fixed and then recover from that. And then that is your best shot at getting back to things sooner rather than let's just keep putting a Band-Aid on it, and more physical therapy and more injections and more pain medicine. And then eventually you're going to have the surgery. You know what I'm saying? So
what was it like and again, I want to, what's your conversation with the Lord like, Katie, when you had this massive surgery that we're kind of pushing our chips in on? This is going to solve this. Yeah. This thing that's been going on for years, this thing that's robbed me from a dozen things that I would want for me and my daughters and my husband. And then for recovery to be as brutal as it was, and then to not even really fully be out of recovery from that before you hear, hey, we got to do that again.
Devastating.
Yeah.
It was devastating. I just was so frustrated because I didn't understand or see what the Lord's doing in this. Yeah. Like, why? Like, you can say a word and heal me. Yeah. You can make all things new, Yeah. And so,
there were tears.
Yeah.
Many tears. And there was also
I remember
lack
you went dark, right? You were like, I don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Just pray for me. Here's which for you to say, hey, don't swing by. Don't. Leave me alone.
Right. That's a lot.
I need to.
Yeah, for Katie to say
by myself, which is not a Katie Murphy.
And there was even a point, which I haven't said this out loud other than to Matt one time. There was a point during that first glute recovery where I was in bed. It was during Snowvid.
Okay.
where we were
iced in,
we
power
were iced
outages.
in, no power. And during that time,
During recovery, we lost power.
I had
over
an
and
ice
over.
machine during that recovery that wrapped around my stomach, around my hips, and down my
that
leg.
plugs into the wall.
And it was a constant ice machine to keep the swelling down.
Yep.
And that's when we had snowvid. That's when we lost electricity. So it is 30 degrees in our house. I have all of my ski clothes on that I can get on with this surgery. I have mittens and layers, and I'm sitting there. And as soon as we get electricity, I'm not going to be by the fire. I have to turn my ice machine on. And I remember having a dark moment of, if you take all those pills right now, we're done with this.
Yeah.
That was dark.
That is.
And he came in the room, and I'm like having a breakdown. I'm literally losing my mind in this moment. So I just remember thinking, I just cannot live like this anymore.
Yeah.
I cannot just wake up and roll like this. I'm done. I'm maxed out, and I don't know. I just was so frustrated with God, and just, where are you? Where are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing here. And I know that you're good in all things, and I know that I'm not alone. And I had so many constant reminders, and I had great friends. Again, community is so important. Show up at my door.
Yeah.
And say, we're going to lay hands and we're going to pray. I know you don't feel like it, but we're never going to stop asking, and we're never going to stop pleading. And so I think there's so many things looking back that were so timely that my soul needed, that God sent people. He sent friends, or he sent a scripture or a song. I got through so much of this through music, actually, just some worship songs. That really resonates with me is music. And so, somebody would send me a song or randomly send flowers like, hey, I'm just thinking about you. And it's like, little did they know, this is the day where I'm about to crumble.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how I got through some of this. But just the Lord, in the moments of, where are you?
Yeah.
I am in a desert, and I know that you are good and that you are here, but like, help a sister out, you know?
And there's another surgery on the horizon here at a point where both of us have zero faith at this surgery now. Like, we're losing hope in modern medicine at this point. It's like, we could just surgery this thing as many times. It's like, and then what? We're going to surgery it again? What's next? So it was having to go through the hip replacement with no faith that that's actually going to do anything, but still knowing we got to do it. We're not going to stop throwing darts. Yeah. Like, that's kind of we don't have a motto, but like, it's like, we don't quit. We're going to keep trying. We're going to throw darts. I'll find a dart to throw.
So we have the hip replacement, and our hopes are, they have literally cut the bones out, and we've replaced them with like titanium and all the things. And I'm a robot, This should solve the problem. And I'm doing physical therapy, and it's just still hurting. It's still, in a different way. But again, it's all expected. You don't just bounce back from that surgery and nothing hurts. And there's the process, right? But things just hurt. And I'm not able to progress in physical therapy like a normal hip replacement. And so we're just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. Why does this hurt? What are we doing that makes it hurt? I'm back at the doctor. We get an MRI. The implant looks great. That's a big concern. There's no infection. That's another really big concern. Yeah, it's at this point, my glute is retorn, because during that type of surgery, and I did the anterior approach, which is the newer, better recovery approach. They really have to pull and stretch everything out of the way to get to your femur and to get to the
And then
hip
once
joint.
they put it in, they have to make sure that it's in. So they're rotating. Like when you're knocked out, they're doing movements that are not natural
Doing high
or
kicks.
comfortable.
There it is.
To make sure,
Like back in the
hey,
day.
is this hip really in there? And so it's like, well, yay, that helps you tell that the hip replacement was good and it's definitely in there. Meanwhile, we're just probably tearing some other things that are not wanting to be torn again.
Yeah.
So I think that just kind of where they had to reattach the glutes from the first surgery, that was kind of already compromised because it had already been injured and repaired. And so I think with the brutality of what a hip replacement surgery actually is, tore again, just with them having to move it out of the way to be able to get to where they needed to go. And my hip flexor's really been bothering me. Just a ton of pain. I can't really lift my leg. It's hard going up the stairs again. These stairs
Stairs.
Lifting my leg it's still very painful and very hard and very weak. And we're trying to not do things in physical therapy that will aggravate that. So we're trying to make it not fussy. And so we're just very careful with everything. But we finally have gotten to the bottom of my hip flexor tendon, which is called a fancier medical term, but my hip flexor tendon, the back of that tendon is rubbing against the metal of the actual implant.
Okay.
Paired with the re-tear of the glute med and minimus. So here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still in some pain, still in physical therapy. I think that if they haven't been able to follow the story, people who are listening, this is like, we're talking about a decade here.
Yeah.
We're not talking about like 2 years.
Right.
It's been like as long as I've known you. And so talk a little bit about, even now, spiritually navigating a nagging, lingering, painful issue that just won't seem to go away.
It's tough. But I will say today and in the last few weeks, since we were able to take a family vacation, the Lord has given me a lot of relief. I am in the least amount of pain right now than I have been in 3.5+ years. So I have a great amount of hope in Him that He's going to sustain me. And I know that there is going to be an end to this.
Yeah.
But I feel through this whole process, specifically the hip, and there's even some stuff that happened between the 2 hip surgeries that we didn't, random hospital visits and things that happened in that. I feel like I have been able to unearth some purpose and identity of my own that I hadn't really focused on. And so I think that there have been beautiful things that have come out of this season of physical pain and suffering. And so I've kind of shifted my focus instead of sitting around constantly thinking about, this really stinks. Why me? When is this going to end? Waiting. When, Lord? I can't do this, to what can I do?
Yeah.
It's kind of changing my vision for that. And, my identity is not this.
Yeah.
This is a season and it's really hard. But I am not this injury. And I am not just the constant problem. It seems like, my kids kind of laugh now because it's like, Mom, you can't even walk to the car without stubbing your toe or you know what I'm saying? It's these little things that we kind of laugh at, that it's like, oh my gosh, everything is hard.
Yeah.
The most basic things are hard. But I think that my focus has shifted to, all right, God, how can you use me in this?
Yeah.
You have gifted me in unique ways. You've created me in your image, and you have gifted me with things that are different than Matt or you or other friends that we have, and so what can I do with that?
Yeah.
And how can I live my life? It might look different a little physically. Maybe I have a limp, or maybe I'm in the handicap parking spot, or maybe I'm in pain, but I'm able to still show up and participate in things. I've kind of normalized to the pain, and I refuse to just hold back.
Yeah.
I would rather have pain with every single step and still show up and go to church, still go on a family vacation, and do these things. I would rather be in excruciating pain than not do that. And so I'm choosing to move forward in that way, but also focus on what can I do?
Yeah, that's good. So if someone's listening to this or watching this right now and they can resonate with, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years from me. Maybe it's not their hip, maybe it's their back or something else. There's some other kind of constant reminder of the fallen state of the world, their own humanity, and maybe they're in that season, that day, laying in bed in as many of your ski clothes as you could get on, where the power comes back on and everybody gets to move towards the nice cozy fire, and you've got to turn on your ice machine, and you just look over and go, man, I could just take that bottle of pills and this would be over. What would you say to someone they're watching this or listening to this, and man, they're just kind of done right now, and it's been a long time, and they don't see any surgery on the horizon or some magic pill on the horizon that's going to make this thing go away. How would you encourage them today, Katie?
I think I would just say, fix your eyes on the Lord, because the enemy wants to isolate.
Yeah.
He wants to get you alone, and he wants to fill your thoughts with darkness and hopelessness.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to be in that. And so I think you have to be aware. I think you have to fix your eyes on Christ. And I think you have to have hope in him. I think you need Jesus. I do not know how I could have walked through any of this without the Lord, without my relationship with the Lord, without my faith. My hope is in him. And I believe he is a good, right, and sovereign God who loves me and cherishes me and sees me and is walking with me through all of these things. I don't know how I would walk and navigate any of this without him and without my faith in him. So number one, I would say, if you don't know the Lord, get to know him.
Yeah.
He is a good, good father, and he fills every need and every hole that you might have. And only he is designed to do that. So that's number one. Know Jesus if you don't already know him. And if you do know him, you have got to fixate on him, because there are so many distractions and there is so much noise, and the enemy wants to be a constant reminder of the pain and the things that you can't do and all the negative, right? And so you have to overcome that with what you can do and how the Lord might be glorified in this. I mean, I know that's hard to say, and there have been times when it has been hard to rejoice. It has been hard to find joy in this, but I've been able to do that, and I've been able to worship and sing that until my heart believes it.
Yeah.
So it's like just don't give up and focus on that and try to shut the enemy down, because he so badly and desperately wants to isolate you, wants you to believe that, this is never going to get better.
Yeah.
And there is no hope in this, and you should probably just be done.
I think we say, and I think we've said even several times here today, that the Lord has a plan. The Lord does have a plan. What that doesn't mean is that his plan, you're going to like every bit of it.
Yeah.
The Lord has a plan doesn't mean comfort.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean fixing this physical material problem. So I think it's appropriate to lose the illusion of control that you think you have.
Yeah.
Because something like this is a pretty abrasive showing of you're not in control.
Yeah.
And I think it's best to accept that and not be forced into it.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a big deal. This is something that can remind us all the time. It's like, we're not in control, but God is, and God has a plan. And it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. It doesn't mean it's going to be fixed tomorrow, this year, or whatever. But we've got to trust in him.
Yeah.
Because if I would say prior to any of this, let's say we remove every physical ailment that she's ever had, right? Would be a real piece of cake for the Murphs to be like, well, we're killing this. We're in control.
Yeah.
This is our plan, just playing out day to day, year to year. And that would not be a good thing, right? Hate that this is the way that we get to be reminded that we don't have any control, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
That God's in control. I don't know how you can navigate life without it.
Yeah.
Even if you're a do-it-yourself or go get it, I fix it myself. If you want it done right, you do it yourself. Like all that kind of attitude is really just probably a way to push away community oftentimes. But it's just critical. And I think we are blessed with really, really good friendships. There was a season in our marriage early on where we woke up year one and both of us were like, we got crappy friends. Like, we're not like dying to go hang out with any of them, and they're not good. And there's either, they're just not healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we kind of early on in marriage decided, like, what we're going to do is we're going to find some new friends.
Yeah.
And sure enough, surprise, through church, and I mean, God gave us some lifers, some lifer friends, and continues to do so. That I don't know how you live without it.
Yeah.
It's if we were to even separate the biblical truths from that, there's all kinds of science of saying the quality of your close relationships is the number one factor of determining quite a bit of your happiness, joy, contentment, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty serious. And if you don't have a crew, if you're hiding in the shadows of church and you haven't decided to get plugged into that kind of thing, I mean, I don't want to, but like that's where it's going to happen. That's where you're going to have good friends. If we laid out who are our 30 favorite friends right now, you know where we met every one of them? Church.
Yeah.
You know, not the same church, but church.
Yeah.
It's just that's a Christ-centered relationship that formed there.
Yeah.
We can't live without it. I think because we've been there. We've been there where it's like, this ain't working. This little friend group here, and you know.
But I think too, just entering into the season and already having very close friendships and people that we do life with and can be completely vulnerable and open and honest about struggles, and then also celebrate when it's time to celebrate, you know, was so important because for me, walking through this, I had those people send me scriptures or share songs with me. Or, I mean, you guys even came over to the house when it's like, I don't really want you to come over. I mean, but literally, you know, you and Lauren are in that group, you know, where it's like, I've literally had friends hold me up when I could not get up. I've had people, Lauren came and sat at the foot of my bed and prayed with me and came and visited me. I've had other friends send flower. And, you know, I think the Lord works through your friends. And they maybe don't even necessarily know the timing of it. But there were so many times over the years where somebody would just send me an encouraging text, or just, I'm praying for you, or following up on this or that or whatever. And I so desperately needed those things in those moments. And so if I did not have those people to drop everything and to come over and pray for the 500th time and just not give up on asking the Lord to heal, not sending the text messages, not sending the worship song that really resonates with what I'm feeling in this moment. That would have been really hard. I would have felt a lot more hopelessness than I ever had, you know? So I think that really helped me be sustained.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I know we're still praying and still expecting and still longing for the day where you're not having to choose pain to continue to participate in the things that your heart is drawn to, and that you'll be able to do that pain-free. And so till then, we'll hang on and continue to worship and cling to Jesus. Love you guys.
Love you.